Okay, with it being official that Highguard is now going to die as a video game, I thought I would do one final match of Highguard and talk you through everything that happened with this video game. So basically, for anybody who doesn't know, Highguard is a hero shooter-esque game that released in January of this year that I'm recording this video, 2026. So this game was revealed at the Game Awards in December of 2025. So this game was given the final slot at the Game Awards, which is normally reserved for, like, the biggest games in history. Or, you know, for, I don't know if any Smash Bros. Reveals have been the final announcement of the Game Awards, but it's normally left for, like, you know, big stuff like that. So people were expecting something that, shall we say, was not some generic hero shooter. So this game, in all the marketing, was marketed as a new breed of hero shooter.
Our final world premiere comes from 61 members of the team that built Apex Legends and Titanfall. 4 years ago, the principals founded a new independent studio with the hopes of pushing the shooter genre forward with a new original game. They've done it in complete secrecy, which is even more amazing because the game is very deep into development. The power of independent, self-published studios to push this medium forward is a growing and, I think, positive theme in our industry. And so tonight, you're not only going to get the announcement of the game, but also your first look at the gameplay. I've played it, and after you see this trailer, I think you're going to want to as well. Welcome to Highguard.
Into lands uncharted and dangers untold, I venture without fear and ride without rest. For coin or for cause, I fight to the end.
Bringing the heat!
From the developers of Apex Legends and Titanfall, which is big, because obviously those two games are, like, absolutely massive games. So, you know, even, like, just saying, oh, it's by those developers alone, automatically won this game at least some vague favor. But, then, you know, we got the trailer, and it kind of looked like the most generic nothing thing ever. Well, it looked like Concord 2. Like, let's just skip straight to that. The game looked like Concord 2, and everybody called the game Concord 2. Now, if you don't know what Concord is, basically that was a game that released, I think, last year or the year before. It was released by Sony, and it flopped horribly. The game literally lasted 14 days. Because that was like a super generic hero shooter. So everybody was saying that Highguard basically just looks like a sequel to that game. Like the most generic, uninspired game that basically has no right in warranting its own existence. So, you know, but people were like, okay, maybe we should give the game the benefit of the doubt, and see what it's like. So, the game, as I said, was given this big final slot at the Game Awards. And Jeff Keighley, who is the presenter of the Game Awards, and who himself is, to his credit, like, quite knowledgeable on video game stuff, and just does seem genuinely passionate about video game stuff. Like, truthfully, he does. So he seemed genuinely, like, super passionate about Highguard. So he did a load of marketing for Highguard. So Highguard, I said, was shown off at the Game Awards. But then some funny things happened. Because then, I said, people were then flaming it all over the internet. Like, this is just Concord 2. This game does not warrant its own existence. Who the heck decided to make this game? But then afterwards, there was just complete radio silence. So this team called Wildlight Entertainment which are the company behind Highguard. They were marketed as this independent studio, making this game that they wanted, a load of people to, like, see and play, and it was going to be this new big thing. So then after the game was shown off at the Game Awards, Wildlight Entertainment just went completely radio silent. Like, they did no marketing for the game whatsoever. No trailer, no further information, nothing, till literally a couple of days before the game came out. Before then, every piece of marketing was just being done by Jeff Keighley himself. Which is funny, don't get me wrong, because he, did the thing that everybody has memed on to no end, where he said, in 48 hours, I will be accepting your apologies. Because as I said, everybody had been flaming this game to no end. But Jeff Keighley was like, in 48 hours, like, once the game comes out, give it a try, and you will see that I was right, you were wrong, this game is actually the peakest video game to ever be conceived by man.
48 hours from now, if they're not convinced, I'm not convinced. I'll shut you down, John.
In 48 hours, I'll be accepting your apology.
So the game then released and was met by a resounding mid. Like, yes, there was people hating it on the internet for the sake of hating it on the internet, as there is with everything. But I do think generally, most of the complaints were just the game is the most painfully average mid-game ever. I mean, you can see from this gameplay, like, in the background of this video, this game is the most painfully mid-game ever. Because it is just fusing, like, every popular game genre together at once and hoping that it's popular because it's just combining every other popular thing together. Which, unfortunately for Highguard, did not work out very well. The game did, to its credit, apparently, so they've stated, so the developers of the game themselves have stated, the game did reach 2 million people playing the game on release day, which is absolutely huge. Like, so many game developers would kill to get that many people playing the game on release day. So the game was a resounding success on release day. Like, tons of people tuned in to play the game. The problem was, most of those people did not stick with the game. So then, over the next few days, the player count dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped off Steam. Steam is the only thing where we have, like, trackable charts, so I'll just kind of keep referring to Steam's PC number specifically. But on Steam, the player count just kept dropping and dropping and dropping like crazy.
A new PvP raid shooter, and after playing it myself, I can say confidently, absolutely without a doubt, it's a game that came out. Definitely one of the games of all time. But even though I didn't like the game very much, you guys seem to. I mean, almost 100,000 peak players day one? I mean, they might have something here. Help me! Help! Oh, this game lost 80% of its peak players in one day. And this isn't a Concord situation where literally nobody played the game. No, this game was free and had 100,000 people trying it day one. They just didn't like it.
Then, we still kind of got radio silence from the developers initially. But then they were like, okay, here's this roadmap, here's all this stuff. You know, we want this game to try and succeed. We're going to keep it trying to succeed. But the player counts kept dropping. So then it was announced that a bunch of the team at Wildlight Entertainment was being laid off following the player numbers for Highguard dropping so significantly. Which nobody whatsoever was surprised about, if I'm gonna be perfectly honest. Like, nobody was surprised by that. So then one of the, I think they were one of the developers of the game. They were certainly one of the people that were part of Wildlight Entertainment. So one of the people at the company, at least, came out with this massive long spiel that they typed out on the internet, which basically amounted to saying this game was flamed by the internet. This game was chosen to be like the game that everybody just hated on, all the content creators hated on it, and because this game was chosen to be like this terrible, awful game that, is the worst thing ever conceived by man, but that's why it failed, because people chose to make the game fail.
No way this will flop. That's what the Highguard devs were telling themselves in the build-up to launch. 16 days after launch, most of the studio was laid off. Player counts collapsed over 95%, and the devs are now blaming us, the players, for this catastrophic failure.
It has nothing to do with the quality of the game. It has nothing to do with us. It's just because people said it was terrible on the internet, therefore it was terrible. So we just entirely blame, like, content creators and people like that. So by this point, the writing was on the wall. You have the people coming out and blaming everybody but themselves. You have a load of the staff getting laid off. And by that point, like, realistically, what can you do? But the narrative of this game had always been that it was made by an independent development team. Like, this was an indie studio making this game that they themselves were passionate about and that they themselves wanted to make.
4 years ago, the principals founded a new independent studio.
That was always the narrative behind this game, and that is extremely important for what I am about to say. So it then came out in this bombshell article after most of this team was laid off that this game was actually funded by Tencent. And if you do not know who Tencent are, they are basically the biggest media conglomerate in the world, at least in the case of video games. They're like this Chinese company that has stake in basically everything. Like, they own Supercell, who makes Clash of Clans. They have a massive stake in Fortnite, so on and so forth. Like, they have, like, a ton of stuff, basically, that they have stakes in, like companies and whatnot. So it turned out that they had actually been funding Wildlight Entertainment this entire time. And that they were the ones that had actually been funding Highguard, even. See, this is what I mean, the games are too similar. But, so they were the ones that had actually been funding Highguard, and once the player numbers had started dropping off, Tencent then pulled the funding for the game. So, by that point, there wasn't really much the company could do, because all of their funding had come from this big conglomerate that was then like, okay, well, this is not worth our money in investing in any longer, so we are just pulling the plug on this company. So then the game did flop, and then literally as of about a couple of days ago of me making this video, the game has now been announced to be shutting down. Like, the servers are going offline in 2 days of me making this video. I'm recording this on March 10th. And the servers are being shut down on March the 11th. I mean, March the 12th. They might be being shut down on March the 11th at midnight. Like, I don't know the exact time. At least in the UK. So, either way, this game is getting shut down extremely imminently. So yeah, this game managed to last a grand, amazing total of 45 days before it got shut down. Which has then caused a load of people to be like, okay, well, why the hell did this game, enter development in the first place? And throughout this video, like, I have linked content creators, but as Luke Stevens said, like, go check out his content, by the way. But as Luke Stevens said, the reason why these games keep getting made is because Fortnite has made so much money. Like, Fortnite is such a successful game. But these developers, like, these companies are going to keep chasing to try and make the next Fortnite. Because even if 99% of games fail, the one game that does succeed will make them so much money that it will then have meant that all of these other attempts will have been worth it in the long run because they finally made the game that did succeed and made them the ludicrous fortune. But as I said, the problem is that while companies do keep chasing this, you are going to constantly, and I mean constantly, keep getting games like Highguard, where the companies are going to keep making these live service games. Oh wait, that's a shield. Okay. Where companies are going to keep making these live service games and hope that they do well. And then when they don't, well, you know what happens. Like, the games just get shut down, load of people lose their jobs, it's a whole thing. So then another developer has recently come out since the shutdown has been announced and given actually quite a lot of insight and information about this game and the development of this game. So I'm actually I'm going to read at least the bullet points of what he said. So he said that 2 million people downloaded the game across all platforms. Or 90%, I think it was, played at least the tutorial and even and one match beyond the tutorial. So this game had the players, because what I said, that developer, like what some of the developers were initially saying is that, you know, nobody gave this game a chance, like everybody was just hating it for the sake of hating it, right? But then this statement goes completely against that, because this says, oh no, people were playing the game. Like, people gave the game a chance, they just still thought the game was terrible. Which it was. Well, as I said, I have played the game. I think it was just painfully mid rather than terrible. But still. So, you know, people gave this game a fair chance. Like, this game got so many players and such an audience. And people have... So, they also announced, which is actually another thing I haven't yet touched on. So, people also announced that this game was originally going to just be shadow dropped. Like, they originally were not going to even market it. So, Jeff Keighley decided, just out of the kindness of his heart, basically, to give this game the final slot at the Game Awards completely for free. Like, they did not pay a cent or a dime to this game getting at the Game Awards. Like, he just did it for the love of the game. Like, he just wanted the game to succeed. So he just did that, which I do think is nice, because Jeff Keighley has been getting flamed for, like, oh, why did you support this game? You know, why did you support this game that you kind of knew was going to do terribly? And in his defense, like, if they had shadow dropped this game as they originally intended, ain't nobody would have played it. Like, this game would have flopped way worse if they hadn't got the Game Awards. Because this game, as I said, it got 2 million players and yet still did terribly because nobody wanted to play the game. Well, people played the game. People gave the game a fair chance. And they were still like, nah, this game kinda ass. So, overall, I think Highguard is super interesting. And I mean, I did do a video on this channel initially when Highguard first came out, where I find it so interesting because this game is such a good case study, both of how companies are so out of touch with what people want. Like, you know, they'll just make these games that they think will make them, like, uber dollars, whether they think people actually want to play these games or not. And then also it's interesting from the standpoint of the player base, because in the case of, like, players, it's then like, are they too negative, or is it just a case that people are just way too fed up with getting served the same basically live service slop day in and day out, that, like, now people are, like, I guess people keep saying, you know, protest with your wallets. And now people are finally, I think, beginning to do that. Like, did this game get more hate than it deserved? Yes. I'm not going to say that it didn't, because it absolutely did get more hate than it needed to. At the same time, people were being genuinely honest, on the whole, with their opinions of the game. Like, yeah, there was the haters. There was the unnecessary haters. But then you did have people who were like, this game is mid, and if it had had adjustments, like, if it had had this thing and this thing and this thing, because the game did add 5v5, it has now, just like before it, goes offline, added 2 more playable characters, and it also added 5v5 as a game mode. They added that quite a while ago, but so they did try. The problem is, because of this game being funded by Tencent, it meant they had no runway. If this game didn't succeed and make them hella money in the first, week of the game coming out, they had no more money for anything. Because as multiple developers have said, they would have loved to have seen if they could have actually kept to their roadmap and seen if they could draw in more players. The thing was, they just did not have the money as a company without Tencent's backing to make the game in the first place. But then when you have Tencent's backing, you're forced to do what Tencent as a company are telling you to do, whether it's what you want to do or not. And because Tencent as a company are like, okay, well, we need this game to make this much money, or we're pulling your funding. And then the game doesn't make that much money. Obviously, the funding is going to go. That is just how, unfortunately, this industry works now, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And do I think that anything will change as a result of this? I do. I don't think it'll be the industry that changes, however. I think the Game Awards are going to have a massive shakeup, and I'm going to do a follow-up video to this video. I'm talking about the Game Awards specifically, and Highguard's impact on that. But for now, I just want to focus on Highguard itself. Because I do think if this game could have kept to its roadmap, and actually released content, do I think the game would have made this amazing comeback? No. Do I think it could have stayed around longer than the, month that it did? Honestly, yeah, I actually do think it could have done. But as I said, that is just how the industry be. And, the game was just not what people wanted. And, that is just what you've got to put up with. If you don't release the game that's popular, your game isn't going to be popular. I know that sounds like I'm making the most obvious statement in the world, but seeing how many developers refuse to understand that statement, clearly I am not. So, yeah, this is just the Highguard situation. The game is dead, and we are going to keep getting more of the games like this. Unfortunately, we are going to keep getting more Highguards. Whether we want to or not, because Marathon is coming out in... Actually, Marathon is technically out now, but in, a pre-release state. The full game isn't out yet, so I'm not counting it as being released yet. But Marathon is at least somewhat out now. And I don't think that game is going to fare any better. If the game does also get shut down in a month, I'm going to do another video on that. Just because why not? Hunter's Gathering is coming out, and everybody's assuming that will flop too. I'm not going to do a video on Hunter's Gathering. I don't care. I know that game will flop, but because that game isn't Highguard, it's not this game that's releasing on every console. It's not supposed to be this big, multi-thing game that I'm not really counting Hunter's Gathering. It's only launching on PlayStation. So, because of that, I'm at least somewhat discounting it. But if Marathon does flop as well, I will definitely be including that. Because, just what are we doing at the moment? So, yeah, that is the whole situation surrounding Concord 2 Highguard. Did you play Highguard? What did you think of Highguard? And what do you think of all this drama surrounding Highguard? I would genuinely love to know, and please let me know in the comments below what you did think of this game.